It has nothing to do with the late poets. It has nothing to do with the romantics. It's not a book about nature. It is, as I read it, very much a collection of poems that deal with love. Love in its multiple forms and an entangled network of connections. It begins with her recollection of her mother in Windermere, North Dakota, and it concludes with poems about the birth of her own child in Los Angeles. What creates the cohesiveness of the book, and it's very cohesive, is not, however, subject matter or the rounded out closure. It is a poetic intelligence that discovers that each gesture of love, even the most intimate one, opens into a history of gestures and images, sometimes repeated, most commonly modified, a hall of mirrors that reveals something written in us, read by the light of the other. And so presence opens to presences, gesture becomes both something immediate and a form of memory. And this has the right feeling about love, both its recurrent clarity and its endless ambiguity. On the one hand, it's a vision of what is possible and perfectible, the soul wrung forward into image by the hammer of experience. On the other hand, it includes the constant undercurrent of loss and violence and failure, the brutal forms of carnage that love often takes in a world that's not right. There's one moment in the poem that most directly says what I'm trying to say in a roundabout way. In this poem, a woman sits waiting in a plane. It's a recurring image and form in the book, while a crew is de-icing the wings. She's a teacher on her way to speak to students sitting in solemn rows, much like you are sitting now. She's aware of a different urgency, however. Something has gone wrong in her life, wrong in the world outside. It's the human undercurrent again of love and lack love. She holds a book close to her, and in the language of the poem, the book becomes, quote, a fine, stylized stream of interrogation flowing close to the text. The text here is also the text of the heart. And it strikes me that this is an apt description of Carol Muskie's mode of poetry, a stream of interrogation that attempts to read both the stutter of life on the keys and the soul's indecipherable alphabet. It is a poetic intelligence that refuses to be reductive, refuses to be seduced into giving up its clarity for the sake of the fashionable or the theatrical. Carol Muskie.
Thank you for that really lovely introduction. I hate to spoil one part of it by saying that the book is, this is nitpicking, but the book is not pronounced Windmere, it's Winemere. Nobody in the whole world knows this except maybe people who are from Winemere, North Dakota. And it probably was, the town was probably originally named for Windermere. Yeah, and but it's pronounced in the long vowel of the prairie, wine. It ruins everything. I'm sorry. I'll go home now. What I'm going to do is read some poems from Skylight, which is my second book of poems, and then read some from, I call it Windmere myself. I was about to say Windmere. Winemere, Windmere, and then some newer poems. The first poem I'm going to read is called The Invention of Cuisine, and it's about food. Or it's about the invention of the idea of food. Food is something other than just fuel for survival. but the arts of the kitchen, the art of cuisine. And I have it in mind that a woman was probably the one who first discovered cuisine, and that's the situation of the poem. Imagine for a moment the still life of our meal, meat followed by yellow cheese, grapes pale against the blue armor of fish. Imagine a thin woman before bread was invented, playing a harp of wheat in the fields. There is a stone, and behind her, the bones of the last killed, the black bird on her shoulder that a century later will fly with trained and murderous intent. They are not very hungry because cuisine has not yet been invented, nor has falconry, nor the science of imagination. All they have is the pure impulse to eat, which is not enough to keep them alive. And this little moment before the woman redeems the sprouted seeds at her feet, gathers the olives falling from the trees for her recipes. Imagine, out in the fields at this very moment, they are rolling the apples to press. A lamb turns in a regular aura of smoke. See, the woman looks once behind her before picking up the stone, looks back once at the edible trees, the edible beasts, that clean, digestible sky above the white stream where small creatures live and die, looking upon each other as food. My mother figures a lot in my poems. I get more and more as I get older, and this is really the first poem I ever wrote about her, and in fact it was not so much about her as about me inside her. I had a dream that I was inside her womb just prior to being born, and the dream was so vivid. I dreamed that inside the womb my mother was carrying me down the path to a beach, and the beach was somewhere in the coral sea, somewhere in the island, some tropical island, and I could see the water, the color of the water, and the pink sand. And I asked my mother, maybe she'd taken a secret trip to Hawaii or someplace, South Pacific, while she was carrying me, and she said no. She'd gone to Chicago for the, not really quite the same thing. So I still believe that she had a dream while she was carrying me. I believe this now, and that, of course it can't be explained scientifically, but I believe it now, having a child of my own, that she dreamed this dream while she was carrying me, and it became my dream. Perhaps I'll pass it along in slightly different form. My mother, it's called Coral Sea. My mother is walking down a path to the beach. She has loosened her robe of blood-colored peignoir, her belly freed from the soft restraint of silk. In a week, I will be born. Out on a reef, a small fleet waits for the end of the world. My mother is not afraid. She stares at the ships, the lifting mask of coral, and thinks the world is ending. The sea still orchid-colored before her, and to the south the ships in their same formation. But now the reef extends itself. The sea thrusts up its odd red branches, each bearing a skeletal blossom. I have no desire to be born. In the coral sea, the parrots sing in their bamboo cages. The pearls string themselves in the mouths of the oysters. It snows inside the volcano, but no one believes these things. And these things are not believable. Not the reef feeding itself, nor the ships moving suddenly in formation, nor my body burning inside hers in the coral sea near the reef of her lungs, where I hung in the month of December. The year the war ended, the world opened, ending for me with each slow tremor, cold, invisible as snow falling inside the volcano. And this is called Golden Retriever. The idea of the poem obviously comes from the dog, the Golden Retriever, which I had a dog like that as a pet when I was a child, but also because the poem is a little confusing in the person of it. It moves between persons. I mean to say also that the child speaking or the person speaking is the Golden Retriever, the person who retrieves things from memory. I don't like to over-explain poems, but people have asked me about the poem particularly. It's being confusing. Also, there's a reference to a rockola, which is a jukebox, and a rec room, which is a room in which to have fun. and a tool room, I guess. There's something else here that I usually say. I can't remember what it is. Golden retriever. Also, in the beginning of the poem, I referred to putting a tongue to a whetstone. It's not. I really never really put my tongue to a whetstone. It just sounds like it. She was the one who put her tongue to the whetstone on its rickety wheel in the tool room. The wheel spun. The tongue arched in its bud and bent against that dizzy syllable of grit. Still, she could never say what she meant. When she had her 10th birthday cake that winter, she stuttered her thanks for the new blade, skated backward on the rink into her room, holding the sunset. The snow was falling in it, unstoppered, odorless as chloroform. Under the X'd surface of the ice hung a gold tuft from the day her brother flooded and made the retriever sit in the wet as it hardened. He was a pup then, but was trained to obey. It made him mean, doing what anyone said to do, but he did it all the same. Down in the rec room, she pushed 12 on the rock Ola, and the records wobbled on her neon stalk. The red planets circled each other inside the glass. It was a room for fun, they said, and though it was, it still lit up with loss, the kind that comes from debts collected, or so she imagined. Piano and pool table, odd courtesies of foreclosure. On the polished bar, a lit triptych said, Ham's Beer, its waterfall of blue tinsel rippling behind the beaver paddling a canoe up front. The retriever trained to hunt would point for minutes at a dying bird, then fetch whatever you sent him for, till he bit a neighbor's child, who touched his unhealed sore. What happened, happened. No cause and effect connected her tongue and her troubled heart, and never would. The pain came on its own and pointed for minutes at whatever was wounded before her. In the end, she might have to break its neck because of that pain. Maybe she imagined a family on the edge of a windy precipice, and just like that, retrieved them as she stood at the open door of the jukebox, sliding in a few new discs for her dad. Maybe she could bring back his hand on her shoulder as they stood staring into the glass juke, singing Rock Island Line. A bird hurt bad will wing limp for acres to save itself. She knew even then it was better to be dead than weaponed in that way, and laid down like a ragged prize at the foot of his least dream, his sufficiency. Actually, I think I'll read one more. This is called Chivalry. It's about, I was in Benares once, in India, the holiest city, where if you die, if you die in India, if you die in Benares, your soul goes straight to heaven. And I saw, the poem explains it. Chivalry. In Benares, the holiest city on earth, I saw an old man toiling up the stone steps to the Ghat, his dead wife in his arms, shrunken to the size of a child, lashed to a stretcher, the sky filled with crows. He held her up for a moment, then placed her in the flames. In my time on earth, I have seen few acts of true chivalry, reverence of man for woman, but the memory of him with her in the cradle of his arms, placing her just so in the fire, so she would burn faster, so the kindling of the stretcher would catch, is enough for me now, will suffice for what remains on this earth, a gesture of bereavement in the familiar carnage of love. My grandfather, in this town, Wyndmere, North Dakota, was what's called a separator man. He lived a cliche. He literally separated the wheat from the chaff, and I love the idea that he embodied this cliche. Isn't so right in that. But anyway, he inspired this poem, The Separator. My grandfather was a separator man, harvesting the wheat in Wyndmere. Behind a team of stubborn plugs rolled a machine, an iron dinosaur on wheels, a thresher run by steam that, like a man, ate and defecated but had judgment in its gut. It separated strong from weak, wheat from chaff, by sunset spread prim fans of grain in windrows across the red earth. Famous in all the Dakota counties, where wine mill had once been famous for nothing, it perfected itself like some genius of detachment from mechanical moving Buddha. It left gold temples shuddering in its wake. My grandfather died rich and didn't know it. No one told him. By then he was too good at separating. His wife 10 years dead, his children gone off, no one to give something to, no one to witness how what was taken away stayed with him, like the dream of his dead wife in his arms, asleep in the beautiful world of chaff. I remember he held one arm close to his side and squinted, nearsighted, separating the outlines of one thing from another, separating poor from poorer, hard from stone, the clear, edible grain from what is thrown away to the wind, which can find a use for anything. This is called Blood Hour, and it's about the first time one of my older brothers, or my oldest brother, took me out to try to teach me how to use a rifle. Blood Hour. The long grass blows flat as I pass through it dreaming, with my taller brother in the .22. He is teaching me how to handle a rifle. Early sunset breaks across our path. 3 burning clouds, the great chieftains, rise above us. When I look through the sight, I see the door opening miles away. Across the plains, a woman setting an old cradle out on her porch. My brother puts his arms around my shoulders from behind, his head cocked next to mine, adjusting the arm's cantilever, adjusting as much as he can the crooked line of fire that I will see in reverse from the next second forward, from the cradle to the burning island on which we stand, from the dead bullet to the barrel, and back into the live shell chamber. This one is called White Sea. The mountains shut their doors in the shadow of the jet, turning east over the continent, widening like the light on the bed in the blue room where I last held someone I loved. Out there the palms line up, straight as bent as rain, but the leaves and the red bird's question at each descending step of sleep bring on my prison dream, where escape is an ongoing joke, where the inmate tunnels furiously and thinks he's free, while above ground the tower lights track his burrowing. See the good trees lean down, lowering their nooses. I could tell you I don't dream that dream anymore, that when I walked through the warning on the door I woke. Still the sun inched a barred shadow forward to the glass doors I slid open this morning, and with human lives inside, the plane now circles above Manhattan. At downward distance, under roof after roof, the mind lies to itself and tries to sleep. The body bends into its conscious cage. The plane hovers over its perfectly marked lines of entry as thought flies parallel to revelation, dreaming of all the places along its body it might intersect with sudden light, but doesn't. The man sleeping next to me holds his whiskey to his heart. Say the plane is a white key, turning in the sky's white ignition. Say what fires the air is not the tarred surface below, wrung with spun treads, but release from the descending world, the only one we know, and the false gold god at the horizon we worshipped all night, all wrong. I turn to you in my mind. Behind us, door after door turns to solid wall in space. I'm not going to read one poem I'm afraid to read because it seems boring to me. So I'll read this one first and come back to that one. See if maybe this one will be more boring and that one will seem less so in retrospect. This is called August Los Angeles Lullaby, and it's about nursing a child. The pure amnesia of her face newborn. I looked so far into her that for a while the visual held no memory. Little by little I returned to myself, waking to nurse those first nights in that familiar room where all the objects had been altered, imperceptibly. The gardenia blooming in the dark, in the scarred water glass. Near the phone, my handwriting illegible. The patterned lampshade angled downward and away from the long mirror, where I stood and looked at the woman holding her child. Her face kept dissolving into expression resembling my own. But the child was pure figurative, resembling no one. We floated together in a space the lullaby makes, head to head, half sleeping. Save it, my mother would say, meaning just the opposite. She didn't want to hear my evidence against her terrible optimism for me. And though despite her, I can redeem, in a pawn shop sense, almost any bad moment from my childhood, I see now what she must have intended for me. Felt it for her, watching her as she slept, watching her suck as she dreamed of sucking, lightheaded with thirst as my blood flowed suddenly into tissue that changed into milk. No matter how close I press, there is a texture that moves between me and whatever might have injured us then. Like a curtain's sheer opacity, it remains drawn over what view we have of dawn here in this one-time desert, now green and replenished, its perfect climate unthreatened in memory. Though outside, as usual, the wind blew, the bough bent. Under the eaves, the hummingbird touched once the blood-colored hourglass, the feeder, then was gone. And this is another baby poem. This is about ultrasound, which is a technological advance for which I'm personally very grateful, that we can now see a child in the womb at like 3 or 4 months. But it is also, I guess, when you think about an invasion of a privacy so ancient and so total, that it also alters history in a way that is hard to take in. It was for me at that time. I have a photograph of this being, you know. It's so fascinating because, you know, the hand raised and, you know, all the gestures she has now, but this is at, you know, about 3.5 months, I guess, of whatever that is, fetal being. It's called Sounding. 4 months in the womb, you were photographed with sound. We stared at the pulsing surface of your skull, your fingers lifting as if to stave off a sudden wind in that sealed room, where for so long only our 2 hearts echoed each other. Screened, your heart glowed at the joint of the caliper. Months later, after they had bathed you and brought you to me, I washed you again in privacy, opened one by one the clenched fingers, seen too soon, brushed the thin skin of the skull where the brain's leaping blood bulged against it. For months I'd heard it in dreams, the underwater gong, then the regular shock waves, an assault as barbaric as conception, the soul wrung forward into image, as metal is stunned into coin, as the hammer sounds against its resistance, the gold, unblinking eye of the forge. Well, they're still boring, but I'll see something here. It's called 3 Letters, and they're 3 separate poems, but they're a little hard to read because they don't really read like letters. They're just really 3 separate meditations on 3 different ideas of enclosure. From the Arsonist is the first one. The women in prison merge, arrange themselves in rows. No one will yield easily to the other except the arsonist, the woman who is afraid to speak and who is beaten. She yields to everybody. She follows each shape their bodies succeed, her eyes a sentry torch, a spark pinched into service. Light is wrenched from her face like some brutal ornament of the familiar. God has told her every sin, and she will remember each one in her further radiance. God folds back the metal gate. The guard pokes the burning eye of her lighter to its smoke. There's a gold chain of vertebrae she can count through the thin skin of the cloth in front of her. If she thinks at all, she thinks of the singed wall of breath, the heart's inferno. Hell is the absence of metaphor. To Jane. When we sat side by side at the play, I could feel you clearing the way through the skeptic's monologue of faith. Two nuns and the voice of reason. Reason is always a second-rate performance. But I could sense you beside me, ordering those two opposing styles of imagination till innocence in its cloud restored evil as it does, restored the wordy God who impersonates us. Once I sat around a table with four lady murderers. Each Friday night we wrote poetry. Crime was a way of composing the spirit. Sally Chester described God's voice making her walk 3 times round her drunk husband as he slumped head down on the kitchen table. She kissed both temples before blowing his head off. So what if he'd beaten her 10 years? Running, the jury saw her unraveling like a used fabric 3 times round that table, like the woman who lifted her baby out of the window high up in the projects. Thread between them didn't snap because she could fly. Crime is never crime as it happens. It's ritual, the uglier for not recognizing itself. The gauzy shoulders ripped from the real shoulders once, twice, the facsimile of a lover's face painted in blood on a mirror. Here, the poor hands of the actress are drenched in God's cosmetic. The playwright has her killer baby quick. It's his signature, the swift denouement, the exact reverse of a miracle, though a miracle was hoped for, having been held in abeyance, awaiting God's pure instruction. To Lee in L.A. Back in New York, I put bread on the fire escape for the small gang of birds who congregate there. It is the simplest offering I know to the God of hunger and joy. The sun, which has lost everything and so long ago, shines on us. The wind lifts its hands over its small flyers as they land and eat. One by one, I divide myself now between love and fear, like David, learning his lines, staring at me out of the mind of a long-dead composer. The day after Curtis and I each bought an electric rose at Radio City, I put mine in the vase with the real flowers near the window where the birds scatter, where the soul, that chimney sweep, can blow aside the ashes and find the last small fire that we are. To imagine a child sparrow, a small fire, to be granted that blessing and the further blessing, to accept it, Lord, this great mercy, I ask of you. This is an LA poem about coming over cold water. If you know LA, you know the canyons, and you know that you get to the valley, or from the valley by going over cold water. A rhyming poem. I hope you won't hear too many of the rhymes. I drive fast uphill and static picks with the radio plays to pieces. The palms are idle, spotlit above the occasional court. A late wind pays their crowns. On shifting lots to the canyon top, houses built on chance, zigzag like lines of coke on a mirror. One too close to the other and no insurance for big sliders. Still, something permanent waits here to reclaim itself. Solar panels hoard the sun. Under a redwood, a woman at her kiln stares at the fiery shell. It's no safe harbor. What is? When it blows, the Santa Ana blows right down to the brick, but like the green spike of mint or marjoram, faded into a stew, there's a hint of original taste here. The scent of what these slowly falling neighbors cook in one pot, but apart, meditates in the air, sort of Moroccan. In the dead eye of the bright, I spot red tiles, a way of life. I like it. Off stage, Mother Pacific turns up her 1,000 winged collars. Further out is a zen ring of islands, airbrushed, fanned up like sand from a wind machine, where wing after wing, there's land lets go. I wouldn't call it exile at all. Are you coming home to Christ? The sign asks. And I think of the 32 years it took him to work up an appetite for human company. When he cried, "Speak, Theo, I thirst," someone offered him hyssop on the cross. His tongue a black dart, he turned and spoke kindly to the person next to him. He was happy then, promising heaven to a thief, drinking in the earth himself, still its streams and green canyon pools. I thirst. Out on cold water, I hit low beams. Now I'm going to read some new ones. How am I doing time-wise? Should I? Okay. Some are called. By day she's not so sick. She hits the hound, then kisses him. Nice dog. He cringes. Then his wolfish face lights up. To me, she does the same. At two, her love of power's in two parts, love and power. Late at night, I hold her to my breast. The wet indent her fevered head makes stays pressed against my gown. She doesn't have to ask. I wake with her. I hold the mercury up to the light and read its red suspense, the little trapped horizon of her heat. Her slowed lungs draw and empty. Below on the lawn, a hunched figure, dawn, breaks the black grass light, turns into a set of swings. I hold her sleeping weight and rock till something in the east throbs up. Day, offering itself, then drawing back. Day, commuting from a city, remote as hell or health, where I remember living once, for myself. Long before this little bird filled its throat outside the beveled glass, before the headlines stumbled on the step. And this is a poem called Dream. It's about a recurring dream I have in which architecture betrays me, or not architecture, what I dream about are places I used to know, places I used to live in, and they look the same on the outside, like an old apartment I used to live in, and then I go inside and it's changed into a bowling alley or a disco. But some of the things I used to remember are there, so it's just enough to drive me crazy. This is a poem about that. Dream. It's my old apartment, Gramercy Park, but then it's not. I know the 3 steps up, the squeaking door, the foyer table stacked with mail. I know that light falling like jail bars on the tiles, my numbered door. But when I turn the key, there's a disco, strobes, my dead landlord serving drinks. Or it's a skating rink, a nook at the Frick. Today the men came early to dig a pool, and I woke from sorting something in my head, a box of old mittens or scarves, snowflake patterns, lucky stars. Here I have a poster on my wall, the sun in shades, a turtleneck of smog. It isn't just a dropped stitch. My memory is actively unfurnishing that flat. Why, I haven't a clue, but one, perhaps. The time I stood locked out on the snowy fire escape, looking through the glass at my life. Lamps, books, coffee table, each self-contained photograph. New York at dawn, my flame silk dress feel improvised now. It was that interior I'd fix in my sight forever. Climb down the icy rungs and not come back. Freezing wind out there, stocking feet, my dress feeling like a bell, then a newer, dizzying grip on things. This sudden single wish for riddance, to turn my back on space I'd made with the pathetic charm of the possessive, mine and uninhabitable. This is called Hospital. When she came to visit me, I turned my face to the wall, forgetting how only that morning I'd bent my head at the bell, taking the host from the fingers of a missionary priest. Propped like the plastic menu against the steel pitcher, I slid up and down in my bed, a changeling like every other child guest of St. Joseph. The scald mask, the waterheads, the stick figures with rickets. The covered gurneys and machines wheeled by my numbered door and disappeared, orderly as dusk in the courtyard, the windows curtained one by one. I could not abide her open face. The galls in my weak penciled translations called again and again to Caesar in bad Latin drawn from my missal. In the fervent, improvisational style of the collaborator, I found the pony word for appropriation, loving each white strip of bandage, the knife in my chest, the flickering light embedded in the headboard, the tug of a snake wire to the nurse's station. Its head lay on my pillow, a painkiller lay in a cup. I asked for nothing but to be still, but the right to stare at the wall as she sat in that chair till past 6, my gifts unopened in her lap, the winter dark growing between us. This is called Skid. That winter betrayal dogged my footsteps across the drifting fields of white. I froze gradually out of my one credible self into each bad doppelganger that lie made of me, pinched and sinking as the row of snow effigies, the students hard-packed and hosed to ice in front of the frat houses. In the middle of the little bridge over the stopped river, my leased car fishtailed, spinning complete 3 times before the chainless tires caught. Each time round I saw a face, the husband who imagined he loved me, the wife who confided in me, the child who cried no clearly upon meeting me, as if he saw at once to what use we put those vanishing, invented selves. I saw us circling, accelerating into the skid for days after, my slurred dramatic tracks ring dark and frozen on the outbound path, melting in stages like the glacier that made this prairie, weeping into its final resting place. Mother of emptiness, mother of level distance, of flood-shaped bulldoze, mother of no place to go, making a hill like a no, making a valley like a long ripped scar, then after a few centuries that bluff, and on it a town that perched lit like a brain, full of beautiful, useless information. And one last one. This is after reading Issa, the Japanese haiku master poet. He had many children, many of whom died, and one in particular he wrote about just twice. Once is a celebration of this little girl at 6 months, and Japanese count, actually she's almost a year, Sato Jo, and he says to her in the haiku, crawl and laugh, for now you are 2, double. And then there's a silence, and a second haiku, after her death of smallpox, he says, autumn wind, something like autumn winds, I see falling the red blossoms she loved to pluck. And the sparseness of that moment, the refusal of the emotion of the child's death really stunned me reading that, and I wrote this poem in response to it called Immunity. Issa's little daughter, Sato Jo, on all fours in this haiku, laughs. She's nearly my daughter's age when he makes her immortal. Her face contains his like a reflection of sun that leaps from wave to wave. Still, if real age is in the expression, she's sure enough of love to have begun moving away. 1 step, 2. How the body sways away from its origins, the parents, the mourners who laugh and clap. I look up into sunlight, Annie in her flowered suit, pressing her hands on the moon rocket, printed on the bottom of her pool. 2 haiku, 2 seasons blown gently apart by her breath. Sato Jo dying of smallpox, Issa bending over her, lights surrounding them like a moat. The burning wire between them, silence, the same soundless echo, hokusai paints between the great wave, poised, and the doomed fishing boats below. And these haiku, 2 opposed notions of perfection. The fat baby serene, New Year's Day, then autumn winds, scattering the red blossoms she loved to pluck. Either her death or her life. Neither will he liken to anything. Not her soul to a kite, not the kite to a marker, bearing the name of the child running on the earth below it. Nothing but water, pouring into water, spring ending. Him holding her in that moment before immunity, before the dream rises in its tree of bloomed resistance into this future where I wrap her in a towel. I carry her in my arms. I take her death into me, little by little, temple bells, grass, happiness when she smiles like this, when I see she'll live forever. Thank you.